afternoon, everyone. Currently on my lunch break, so I decided to do a quick video. This is gonna be short. This is gonna be a video on I don't know, self-worth. Self-worth, I guess. 1:13. Okay, I got some time. I got some time. You know, I got like 40 minutes. You know, pop my shit. I got like 30 minutes, but self-worth. One thing that happened with coronavirus is you're seeing domestic abuse, other things, but you're seeing that with isolation, with COVID, a lot of people are running into, or there are many people who are running into this crisis where being alone and being aware of some of their pitfalls and being aware of some of the things that they think are good and bad traits of themselves, they have problems going through this, right? Many people have said like, Randy, you're a fucking cocky motherfucker. If you like me, I'm like I'm like funny, like cool. I'm informed about shit. If you don't like me, like, it's usually like he's the most pseudo-intellectual, condescending piece of shit. Like it depends on who you ask, and there's people who usually don't like me, right? But the reason why I have that trait of like people like, hey, like Randy, you seem like confident when you speak, like you speak like matter-of-factly and with many things. That was definitely a thing that I had when I was younger, but I had to like read in order to be comfortable. I had to read in order to be comfortable with, comfortable enough to do that, right? It's really, basically the thing I'm talking about is introspection. People never really, you know, COVID gave us an opportunity to slow down with shit, and it may have been more difficult for some people than others, depending on the personal things that they had to deal with, bills, so on and so forth, that contributed to their mental state during COVID, locked up. But part of that is being alone, right? A lot of people never really took a chance to determine like, who am I? What do I like? What are my interests? What do I not like about myself? What are the reasons that I think some of these things are good? What are the reasons I think some of these things are bad? And then doing my research on them. A lot of people don't do that. For me, I was always a person who took time to kind of be by myself and kind of try to understand myself, and it was always to kind of be real with myself. I really can't tell you like what age this happened, but like at a certain point, like it was just me, like, yo, like if there's certain negative shit going on, you got to deal with it. If there's certain people treating you a certain way and you enjoy this interaction with them, you got to kind of gauge like, what's the problem here? Are you part of the problem? Like a lot of these things, I always had to do that, right? So one thing that ended up happening with me, usually like with friends, like this will happen. Like I have a bunch of friends, I'll like duck off for a minute, then I'll come back and it's like, oh, how y'all doing? Like everybody's good. Damn, Randy, like you look good. Like, hey, you look good too. Now, I don't know how much of that is real with friends. Sometimes it's just like to get it up, right? To kind of gas you, or to, you know, starting with a compliment, right? And with many friends, like at points where I'd come back and we'd see each other again, like I'd say they look good, but like regardless, depending on how people are doing, you're always gonna find out how someone's doing after they speak more. So regardless of them saying they're good, when they get drunk, when they talk about their shit, then you see that. Me, it seems like when people run into this thing where they're in a dilemma and they try to figure out what the problem is with it, they try to resolve it there, and then they don't incorporate that into their life and move forward. So what happens with those people is they may run into the same problem over and over and over again. They may, I don't even know if the scope is recording sometimes. Like sometimes I'm not even sure. Like I don't know, maybe it is. You know, the move forward, there's good shit going on. Oh, it is still recording. You move forward, you know, there's good shit going on. You're aware of like some things that are good or bad, what the problem is. You identify what the problems are, what the triggers are for that problem, and then you move forward, right? And this is one thing I've done in my life. Like every time I've quit a job, every time I've had a problem with friends, every time I've broken up with someone, like every time I've been in a situation that doesn't even need to be like an extreme situation, I always take some time to look back and be like, Randy, like, what is this? Are you cool with this? Are you fine? I've written journals for myself. I've even a lot of my videos for YouTube, I kind of record that and I kind of keep it on just to kind of have like evidence of my progress. And the idea is, whatever you view as that problem, you're supposed to isolate it, identify why it's a problem to you, incorporate it into your life, and move on. With COVID, just the isolation in itself, a lot of people, they dealt with a lot of the negative things that were ever happening to them that they always put on the back burner, and like the overload like caused them immense stress, even suicide to some extent. And the idea is, unfortunately, with all of this, you have to be real with yourself. With the negative things going on in the world, when it comes to understanding yourself, when it comes to having the tools to deal with negative things going on in the world, even if it's stress, you shouldn't, it's important to try and gain access to the tools that are going to be necessary for you to combat these things, even if they're different forms of stress, right? So for this, I just want to advise people, like, write some shit down, you know, try to look up philosophy, some stuff about, you know, what some things are. Try to do a philosophy test. Like, I don't even, like for me, it was always like, I sat myself in a room and I kind of just like isolated things, right? Like I kind of, damn, like I keep thinking this shit's done or whatever, but you know, I think it's just me. Where like me, I always like made an effort to read. I don't know a shitload about philosophy, but like, hey, what are these terms? Like, what do you like? Ego, like what is like egoism? Like what are, and basically it's a way of thinking. It's not objectively right, but it's a way of thinking in life where it's a tool. Your view on life, you're engaging in actions based off of your toolbox, and it's supposed to be a benefit to you, right? If you come into a problem later on, then you deal with it, you modify it. Depends on like what it is on a case-by-case basis. But you've read enough to have access to tools that are going to be good for you. Along with this, you can't lie to yourself, I think. And the reason why I say this is when you end up lying to yourself, it ends up coming out in other ways, right? When you drink, when you do all these other things, like you may try to own it when you lie to yourself, but if you don't, eventually it comes back to bite you in your ass in other ways. And you can only cut yourself off so much before, you know, nobody's around you, or whatever you think is a good thing is, you know, it's not happening anymore. And then in a situation like that, you may want to see a psychiatrist, psychologist. Do I think that these are good things? Yes. Do I advise you go to the first one you see? No. Do I think you should schedule a couple appointments? Probably. With me, I think they may be a good reference point when it comes to mental health and all of that. But at the end of the day, for me, like, again, it can be useful for people, but to me, for mental health, like, ain't no psychologist or psychiatrist gonna be able to tell me as much as I want to tell, right? So they can't really know as much as you tell them. And I think even for when they do that in this field, like, that's a given, right? Like the expert or the person who kind of knows it is always the patient. Like, you kind of have to throw shit out and see if they catch on it, or just to kind of tease out what they may be not mentioning to move forward. But when it comes down to dealing with the shit, like, you only got to deal with it yourself. When it comes to people in your family, people in your life who you care about, when you have some of these negative traits and you don't take control of it, it also impacts them. So, you know, it's very important while COVID is here and we still have a lot of time to be real with yourself, man. That's really it. You gotta be real with yourself. You gotta read the Plato Stanford thing. I've said, like, learning about yourself is the best thing, man. It's the best thing, because when you're alone, you can't. When you're alone and you're real with yourself and you act like, that is the only time you're gonna be able to. How are you gonna have time to set away friends that were never your friends? How are you able to do this? You gotta be by yourself. You gotta figure out what's you, right? Is that saying, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. Friends is just like the easy thing to me, but like, it can be anything, right? Like, and the idea is like, damn, like, you like doing drugs, you like doing so, I mean, but aren't you hurt? It's kind of, you're doing shit because your other friends do it too. Ain't they running into the same problems? Aren't you guys all getting drunk together because y'all kind of got the same problems? That's one thing I can think about. But it's very important to even think of the idea of what is good and bad about yourself, right? It's very good to isolate what is good and bad about you from your perspective and see if that's really a bad thing. Too many times, some people may also use society as a reference point, may use society as a reference point instead of themselves as a reference point, and it leads to like where you're trying so hard to change yourself, and like some of the shit you're trying to change isn't even a problem. You know, for shit like that, you gotta be real with yourself, man. You gotta read. You gotta be really honest. But it takes time. This like extra cocky motherfucker asshole that I'm trying to calm down, the asshole. I'm only gonna do that